Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
We're not from Memphis, but we love it.
Welcome to Memphis Type History, the podcast.
Do you want to read your intro?
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know what to do without someone helping me here.
Yeah,
So thanks.
okay. We'll figure it out together.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Rebecca Phillips here with a special guest, Brandon Marshall, drinking a mojito on my front porch. Such a friendly guy, such a friendly setting. As you know, if you're familiar with Memphis Type History, we collect and share facts and stories about Memphis type, signs, and or history. Today we are going to learn about a type of art of type. Here with me is Brandon Marshall, a skillful being in the art of inking, breakdancing, murals, and graffiti, which is what we'll be learning about today. If the name Brandon Marshall doesn't ring a bell, perhaps Nosey42 does. And if you live in Memphis, you've likely seen his work around town, though his work can be discovered throughout the US of A as well. Brandon has executed sublime murals throughout Orange Mound, a neighborhood that speaks well to his heart. Other locations include Overton Square and Advanced Memphis. He has collaborated with other artists such as Michael Roy and Kyle Taylor to bring us other life-giving murals in downtown, over at Wiseacres property, and perhaps my personal favorite, the installation at the Brooks Museum for the gaming exhibit display a while back. But think of this episode as Graffiti 101 because that's what I plan to learn about from the expert himself, Brandon Marshall. Thank you for being on this show.
So happy to be here. I think that intro went very well for the both of us.
Yeah. All right, wonderful.
Well executed.
Thanks. I want to explain to our audience that you may hear crickets, possibly car, because we are outside for a good environment. And this is the environment that Brandon's probably very familiar with because you are a graffiti artist, muralist, because those seem like they're two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to let you know that I did research you,
Okay.
in case you couldn't tell, although I was very familiar with your work already.
Did you find any bad news or?
Well, you know, the first thing I discovered when I looked up your name is that you are an American football wide receiver for the New York Giants.
That's right. And I beat my girlfriend up that one time too.
Right.
That was a charge. Like, people. I'll be in line at gas stations and things, and people say, "What's your name?" And they say Brandon Marshall, like the football player. And I say, yeah, except for I don't beat up my girlfriend because he was arrested, and I don't know who he actually is. I don't watch football, but everyone thinks it's hilarious, so I just keep saying it.
You just say it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm also a football player.
Yeah, the first one. And then the real Brandon Marshall came in second.
Okay.
So you're
enough.
about to get above the football star.
Good.
You're right there. But yeah, so I thought about researching graffiti because with our podcast we usually look into the history of the topic that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to treat this more like a Graffiti 101 because I want to be genuine in the questions I ask. I don't want to already know. I want it to be a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And so just bear with me.
Sure.
That the questions that I'm going to ask you really are questions that I am not familiar with. And
Okay.
one being, I don't even know if graffiti is illegal or are there cases when it's not illegal?
Right.
And that kind of thing.
So the definition of graffiti is that it's a mark or a series of marks that's applied to a surface without permission. So by definition, yes, graffiti is illegal, but I guess in the I'm gonna go do the history thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in the late 70s, people say that the original birthplace of graffiti art as people know it today was in Philadelphia, but it also gets commonly lumped in with New York City. A lot of people associate the beginning and the kind of the genesis of graffiti art in New York City in the late 70s. And it was very, very simple type of thing. It wasn't very evolved. It was just like people writing their names in their neighborhoods, right? Like, so, like if your name was Tracy and you lived on 140th Street, you would write Tracy 140. Right?
That's where the number comes from?
Yeah, like a lot of people would write their street names.
Okay.
I guess even to start, like, all the way back, graffiti, as we're talking about it, it's a game. It was a game that's invented by youth in like Philly, Washington D.C., New York City, where people were just trying to write their names as much as possible. They choose a name or they were given a name, and you're just writing your name as much as possible so you start to gain a notoriety. And then eventually...
And is there any special way to write your name, or at the time it really is just your own handwriting?
At the time, yeah, back then it was just your own handwriting, and the materials were very simple. Like, people were using spray paint, but not anything elaborate. And people were making their own kind of utensils to write with and making their own ink and things like that and just writing their name. And then, eventually it started to be so saturated, and especially with cities with subways, which I'll get into that later too, about the subways. But in the cities with subways, kids were riding the subway all the time as their primary means of transportation and every day. So the great thing about subway cars is that they go all over the city. So if you were writing your name on the subway cars, then you would know that all the other kids and all the other, like if say you were painting the B line or whichever line, you knew that everyone else on the B line was going to see your name, and then eventually you're going to build up kind of a reputation, like similar to maybe like a superhero where people admire you, but your identity is still hidden away. That's kind of the idea behind it all.
Yeah. And
then it started to be so saturated, and then there was like, people who were artistic and pioneered kind of like the aesthetics of it. And the first guy was this guy from New York City named Stay High 149. That's because he's from 149th Street. And he was the first person, so people were writing their names before him, but he was the first person to try to make it aesthetic, right? Like, he was like, not only am I going to have my signature all over the place, but I'm going to do it really well. Like, to make my name stand out, I'm going to keep practicing, my name, doing the typography of my name until it's better than everyone else's, right? So that right there is kind of the premise of the modern graffiti culture, right? Like, it kept escalating, and people are like, well, you're doing that, I'm going to do this. And, like, everyone's trying to kind of...
It became a lot more stylized that way.
Graffiti art, you make your mark, you leave a piece of art behind, and you don't really know where it's going to go. You don't know who's going to see it, and you want people to remember it. So if it's like done really well, if the letters are constructed really well, then they're going to remember it more, and you're going to gain more notoriety.
Yeah. And for the most part, people will write their name?
Yeah. So most people don't write their actual names. Maybe back then they were, but yeah, a lot of times you're picking a pseudonym. You choose a name, or like in my case, with the name Nosey, someone gave that to me. It was a nickname, and that's just kind of stuck,
Mm-hmm. Do people call you Nosey? Or I know your handle is Nosey42. Did you live on 42nd Street?
No, I didn't. So there's also a thing within graffiti called, what we call crews. And so a crew is like more or less it's like your team. So 42 is my crew. You meet people whose work you really admire and their crew, and then you say like, and for me, like 42 is my crew. And when I was a young, like kind of an unseasoned graffiti artist, they were the guys that I really admired their work so much, and so I wanted to be in their crew. So that's where the 42 actually came in, and I've been...
Was that the original crew you admired to be in? Or was it like you got rejected on the first one and then...
No, I mean, so I was in a local Memphis crew, which it was called UH at the time, and then we were all young and dumb, and so I kind of transitioned out of that around 2009, and then, in 2008 is when I left that one, which is a Memphis-based crew, and 42 crew is Nashville-based, so I was making trips on the Greyhound bus, like, all the time to paint with them. And then, eventually they asked me to write their crew beside. So, like, a lot of times if you see a graffiti piece and there's, like, some letters, like maybe, like, UH you'll see in Memphis, or 42 you'll see in Memphis. I'm trying to think of any other crews people may have seen.
That's marking the crew.
CKB is a crew, like, that gets put up sometimes around here. But, yeah, it's, like, that's their team, more or less, or it's, like, that crew. So...
And each it's always been passed down. Like there's always
It's generational, yeah. Yeah, it's generational.
How many crews do you think are in Memphis?
There are really 2 main active crews here, and there's little ones that come and go all the time. But Memphis is a small scene. Memphis is a small graffiti community, you know. Whereas, like, you know, I just got back from LA, and there are like hundreds of crews out there, right?
Just in one city. This is a big city.
It is a big city.
How many do you think Memphis could hold up, though? Much more than 2, right? Or not really?
How many could we sustain?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely much more than 2. I don't know. I'd say any more than like 6 or 7, and there would start to be like a really heavy aspect of competition. Mm-hmm. And then people would just do it more and more and more because they would be competing to be the best crew in the city. And
do you think that's good or bad?
I think on that level, it can be bad. I mean, everyone has their different opinion on graffiti. Some people hate it, and some people are indifferent about it, and some people like it. And I'm on the end of the spectrum where I love it. And I think if it were up to me, I don't see the big deal about it, I guess I could say. Like,
as long as it's well done.
As long as it's well done, yeah. And even when it's not well done, there's something to me that's very interesting about it. I mean, like, I own property now, and there's definitely a side of graffiti that puts the emphasis on the vandalism part, like this anarchistic point of view where people are just going out and writing on people's stuff, you know, and that's part of the culture. And, you know, I own property now, and I would be upset if someone wrote on my property. But at the same time, I think, like, when you see street level graffiti, which is like tags and scribbles, mm-hmm. whenever I travel out of town, that's the first thing I look for, is the street level graffiti. Not necessarily the big, beautiful murals or the more elaborate pieces, but I just look to see how much tagging there is, and how much, like, walking down the street, how much graffiti do you see on the mailboxes and the dumpsters and the sidewalks. Like, and I think the more that a city has, the more street level graffiti that a city has, I think there's more, it's an indicator that there's a lot of culture there. Whereas when you go to a city with no graffiti, it seems boring to me. And in the most basic way, I mean, like, if you think about the caves, like the Lascaux caves, you know, of people cave painting, right? Uh-huh. It's the same idea. I mean, it's like people are doing it for a spiritual reason, even if they wouldn't admit it, but there's like a desire in everyone to leave something behind, you know, and to make a mark. And I think it's like a very human thing when you're like holding a graffiti utensil and like to just see a mark go on the wall, to know that it represents you. There's something that's very, I don't know, man, just like, it makes you feel like you're really alive, you know, like like you're an artist, you know, when you start making those first marks on a piece of paper and like you're marking the surface, like there's just something almost hypnotizing about it, to watch the pigment go on the paper and
come together.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it could be bad. I think, you know, if there was like too much graffiti, it's bad, because that means a lot of people's property is getting vandalized. But on the other hand, I think if there's a healthy amount of graffiti, like, and people are writing primarily on city property, right, like on under bridges, on overpasses, and things that we all pay taxes on, then I see less of a problem with it, you know. But some people really hate it, you know. Some people hate not just the street level stuff, they hate even the beautiful stuff. Yeah, they hate all of it, you know.
Out of curiosity, I feel like I've seen graffiti placed on top of other people's graffiti, if that makes sense. Is that against courtesy or anything? You're like stepping on someone's toes?
Well, let me ask you this. Like, so you're a painter, like watercolor, oils, right? Like, what all do you work with?
Acrylic,
okay. So let's say that you were getting ready to have a show and you were making some new work, and then you spent, how much, I mean, like, if you were going to sit down and make a painting, how much would you spend?
I'm slow.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, how long would you spend?
I could spend up to 20, 30 hours sometimes.
On a painting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody spends that much time, but, like, and then you bought the materials yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So what if I came into your studio one day when you weren't there, and you were, like, halfway through a 30-hour painting, and then I scribbled on your painting?
Yes. Okay, so it is the same feeling.
Yeah.
Because I get a little mad, but I don't know if that's just like, well, that's just part of the art, or if it is like, nah, you just did that.
Right. I mean, there's definitely like a hierarchy. So the rule in general is if you can't do something that's objectively better than what's on the wall that right now.
Is this a national, like a rule, like a?
It's like a code, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't even necessarily a rule, but it's like a kind of a code of ethics.
Okay.
But so it's like if there's a wall and it's got graffiti, someone else's graffiti on it, and you can't do something that's objectively better than what's on the wall right now, then don't touch it. Don't cover it up. Don't paint over it. And that would be similar to like if I were a new artist, I came into your studio and like tried to paint on top of your painting or add something to your painting. Like you would just be like, no, get the hell out of here. Like maybe you would call the police, right? Even. Or like, yeah, you would certainly be upset, right?
Yeah.
So in graffiti,
some shock value there, yeah.
Absolutely. Like so, in graffiti, like if I like spent all day on a painting a wall and spent $100 of paint, and then I come back a week later and someone's done something on top of it and that's not objectively better, then I'm gonna be upset. I can't tell the police,
Right.
So
because
what do you do?
It's technically public, or okay.
Yeah. So what do? You have to. Either like
move to the next thing,
or find a way to make sure that justice is served, and
wait, how can you do that? Because you can't figure out who did that.
Oh, you can, yeah,
no,
because they would have painted their name. They would have painted their name. So if like
knowing that they could piss you off.
Absolutely, like I mean, like if I painted a nosy piece and then I came and there was like a Rebecca scribble on top of it, like I would know.
But listen, my name's pretty common. I think there are 2 other Rebecca Phillips in Memphis.
Right, but how many of those Rebecca Phillips do graffiti? Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
yeah, okay.
It's like, yeah, people. It's in the graffiti community. It's small, so it's not hard to find out who's writing what name.
Yeah.
Like.
But what about a place in LA though?
Well, that's a different thing. Yeah, so then it might be more of a mystery, and it's like, well, I'm trying to find.
But some people could do it.
Absolutely, yeah, and then you can get found out, or a lot of times, like. If someone were to cover up your graffiti, a lot of times when, like, I would go back. Like, if someone covered my graffiti, maybe I would go back and like, make an X through their graffiti. And in a way, it's setting a trap for them. Because it's like, well, they saw that I X'd through their name. Now they're going to kind of try to come back and go over mine. So now for the next few days, like, I'm going to wait around that and see if they show up,
Oh, to see if you can catch them in the action.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I've never caught someone in the act, but I've definitely camped out. Like in my younger,
really?
in my younger times, yeah, I've definitely camped out and waited on people. And I mean, I've been in fights over graffiti. I've gotten beat up over it. I've been to jail twice. Like it's,
You were serious.
Oh yeah, it's it's not a joke.
How old were you, or I guess I would say young were you, when you started doing this?
I was about 16 or 17 when I got serious.
Okay.
I'm 29 now.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for, a little over 10 years now.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then can I ask, because I have wondered this.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I see the name Nosey, is that you? Or are people mocking you?
Allegedly.
Oh, am I not supposed to say? Is this,
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just clearing my name.
this isn't.
Allegedly, that's me. Sometimes, okay. I will say this. Sometimes there are instances where the younger graffiti writers who I kind of mentored, sometimes they'll paint my name for me, just as like a way to respect,
That's
to
sweet.
show respect.
I like that.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like it gets me in trouble because like sometimes they're writing it on people's shit, and then the owner of that truck or whatever they wrote it on is coming to me, and I'm like, dude, listen, like I didn't do that. Like I know it's like my name, but I like, and they're trying to pay respect, and then I have to go get mad at the younger kids, but or a lot of stuff is older, but I mean, I've kind of definitely chilled out for the last several years on painting my name in the city. Mm-hmm. When I go out of town, I try to make sure I paint it. There's some other things you can do to paint in like some other locations where maybe it's not going to make everyone mad, like abandoned places, and I still do quite a bit of that, and under bridges and things like that.
But more than that, I can visualize under bridges. What I don't understand, how I'll look up and see something high up on a building.
Mm-hmm.
What? What are you? What? Like,
Right.
how do you manage to get up on a high end of a building, or is it just on rooftops that I'm just not seeing?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know exactly which ones you've seen, but I mean, that's
I feel like I saw a Nosey that was downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a Chisca before it got remodeled, or somewhere in that area.
Okay. Again, just to clear my name,
Sorry.
I did not do any illegal activity on the Chisca. But if I were
could have completely, it could have been a
right, you could be,
or
she's on drugs. That's why. But no,
I could have
so
read the name wrong.
So if I were gonna do a building, like I would scope it out in the daytime, and I would try to figure out a way in, and there's always a way in.
Sometimes this happens during the day. Car coming. I should probably note when noise might happen. No? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
I think it's part of the whole experience.
Yes. I hope everybody feels like they're on the porch with us at the moment. In fact, if you're listening now, just stop and wait until nighttime so you feel like you're here with us.
Make sure it's like 72 degrees,
Yeah.
a slight breeze, and then we're also drinking mojitos.
Yes.
So make yourself a mojito.
Just have a relaxing night on the porch with us. So sometimes you'll paint during the day and not be seen?
No, so I'll never paint illegally during the day on a high-profile spot, but sometimes I will do my homework during the day. Let's say an abandoned building similar to the Chisca Hotel. Like maybe I went down there in the afternoon one day, and I parked my car nearby, and I walked up to the building, I circled the entire building, and then I looked for spots in the fence that I could either climb over or go under. And then if I was able to do that, I went one step further, and then maybe I found an open window, or maybe I found a hole in the wall somewhere. Maybe I was brave, and maybe I did a breaking and entering and like smashed a window or something. But then
you were determined.
I was determined, yeah. Not that I did any of those things, but then like, you figure out a way to the top. And I mean, the thing about, painting something like a rooftop or something up high is that, like, obviously it's higher up, so more people are going to see it, and you're going to make more of an impression, I mean,
right.
Just think like it's maybe similar to billboards, how people,
Well, it definitely left a bigger impression. I mean, I still remember it.
Exactly.
Because it's that moment, like, I wonder how long it's been there.
Mm-hmm.
Have I just not noticed it because I haven't looked up?
Yeah.
So you realize I'm asking you all these questions because this is what I plan to do, right? So I got to make sure I'm taking notes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah.
What's going to be your name?
Wait, I can't say because then it's noted.
That's true. See, you're already learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like kind of a somewhat of an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
If you were to say it, yeah.
And my street doesn't have a number, but I'll think of something.
Okay. It doesn't have to be a number.
Oh, that's right. Yours is a crew.
Mm-hmm. Generally,
How long would it take me to get to crew?
get into our crew?
Well, I know it's impossible to get to your crew. How about the most amateur level? You don't have to say their name in case...
Mm-hmm. How long would it take if you were just like day one?
Yeah, how long would it take me knowing that I'm here with you asking about graffiti, not knowing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
How long would it take for me to get the respect to get myself involved? Would I have to have at least traveled places?
Mm-hmm.
And
not necessarily. So the two factors of like what makes a good graffiti artist is quality and quantity, and you have to have both of those things. So in other words, like if I were to drive around the entire city, like I would be making note of where I saw your name, how many times I saw it, and how well was it executed. Once you kind of become proficient in those two things,
mm-hmm.
and you're choosing good spots, you're painting a lot, and you're painting your letters in an aesthetically pleasing way, then you would be a candidate. And then the next kind of factor would be like, do we get along with you? Do we feel like your personality fits into our crew? Do we feel like you're painting graffiti for the right reasons? Do we feel like you're a good fit? But I would say maybe minimum to reach that level, like if you were 100% in, like if you quit your day job tomorrow and became a graffiti artist, like it would take you about a year minimum, I would think.
I gotta quit tomorrow.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Because it sounds really sweet. You got a family here. Are you still on a crew or not really?
I am in a crew, yeah. I'm affiliated. Just on a more conservative capacity now, maybe. Like, I'm definitely not trying to break the law as much anymore, you know? Just because I have more to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, you're an adult now, making a living.
Barely.
Yeah, I will say two things that I do want to ask you about. I'm sorry if I've taken a lot of your time.
I got no place to go.
Okay. One is, I saw an article about you being commissioned to do murals around Orange Mound. Mm-hmm. And I will say, I do understand that there is a difference between graffiti and murals.
Right.
I am definitely more interested in graffiti because of the...
Anonymity?
Yes.
Is it the anonymity?
Yes, thank you.
Right,
okay.
right.
Of that one.
Right.
But obviously the murals are gorgeous, and I think they help the city a ton. But I also would think that about graffiti. You did get commissioned to paint around Orange Mound.
I did.
And I read an article, and I just want to point out that I like this quote from it.
Okay.
That I think were your words. But if not, it's okay. That's still a good quote. Mm-hmm. Murals are for everyone to share. They can't be bought or sold and hung in a private collection or museum where most people will never go. They are produced for anyone to see. There doesn't have to be a lofty conceptual undertone to the work. They provide a strong sense of identity, and they are for the community. So do you appreciate murals as much as graffiti?
I do. Did I say that? That's in an actual article?
Yes.
That made me sound really great. I don't.
That's why I wanted to bring that back up. I liked it, and so much that I wanted to share that again because it makes me happy to know that there is a large community of people. Let me get closer to the mic. A large community of people who are doing this kind of work for reasons like this. Not seeking that kind of recognition.
Right.
And that they can feel comfortable just producing whatever they want and like without caring about what's in trend or what's going to get them recognized.
Right. So, I went to the University of Memphis and studied fine art, and I was in studio classes and everything, and I've had gallery shows, so I've definitely been in like the gallery world and like the fine art world. And something that I hate about it so much is that it's not accessible to people unless they have an educational background and they were somehow educated in, like, quote unquote, the arts. Like, so much of like the conceptual meaning behind a lot of these pieces that I see in the fine art world, it's just not going to speak to the average person. Like, you have to be an academic to appreciate it, understand it. You have to be, you have to have studied art, and there's like very little aesthetically appealing about it. But even if it is a great concept, I mean, to me, a little bit, there starts to be this really like arrogant tone to the work. And like, when I make artwork, my whole objective is to make something that's going to speak to the widest range of people. And I think when I go into a gallery and I see something it doesn't look very aesthetically interesting, but maybe it's, there's this long drawn out process and research done about it, like, I'm not excited about that. And most of my friends, if I took them, or most of my neighbors, if I took them to that show, they wouldn't be interested in it, and they wouldn't be able to relate to it. Whereas graffiti and murals are like so accessible because it's just a name, or a lot of times it's just about the style. It's only about the aesthetic, and you don't have to have a bachelor's degree to understand that. You can just say that you like it or you don't, or you can say why you like it. And so, yeah, that's something I appreciate so much about murals. And murals have been lumped into this street art movement. I even think that the graffiti writing, like just the straight up abstract typography graffiti game, that's like, to me, the most honest form of expression that there is, because it's literally you're writing your name, and it's just you saying, like, I exist, I was here, and now you have to acknowledge my existence, like, because I left this behind, and there's not much more to it than that. And I think that's very pure. Like, people who are out doing graffiti and writing their name, they're not getting paid. They're either stealing or paying for their own supplies. So they're going to great risk just to like tell other people that they exist, you know. And that's coming from a very pure and honest place, whereas a lot of this academic jargon that you see inside the gallery world, it's just not accessible to regular people, and you have to be kind of have your nose in the air at times to even, you know, run in that crowd. And I just get tired of trying to explain myself all the time, and like I don't think about every single decision that I make artistically. Like sometimes I think there's something really profound about just letting things happen. So yeah, along the lines of that quote.
That's good.
There's a difference between murals and graffiti writing. Whereas graffiti writing is it's strictly letters, it's lettering, it's typography, and murals is a lot of times imagery. And a lot of times, like if you go through Instagram or social media, you'll see a lot of murals and they're hashtagged as graffiti, right?
So we're looking through some right now. That's bird cap?
It is.
Okay. We're
Right.
looking through Instagram right now.
So, like, you know, if you look at these hashtags like Memphis graffiti, Memphis art, graffiti art, graffiti porn, street art, tagging, bombing, writing, king, respect, like all of those terms are graffiti terms. And, you know, like I know Birdcap. He's a great dude. He's a great artist. And I would call him...
all those hashtags?
Exactly. He wouldn't because, you know, Birdcap is a sharp dude and he's culturally aware, and like he realizes, you know, that he focuses on murals, but he's also an authentic street artist. Like, okay, so he would be someone that I would feel comfortable saying, like, Birdcap is a street artist, because like when he doesn't have a mural commission, like he's going through abandoned buildings, he's going through ditches, he's going under bridges and things, and
just
painting.
Keeping
his skill up. He's just, you know, doing it just for
love.
just to the love of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I respect him, like, I work with him, but then on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are trying to jump on the bandwagon, and, you know, they have all these hashtags, or they're trying to jump on to this movement of being like, oh, we're doing this graffiti, we're doing this street art, but they haven't ever rolled the dice, they haven't ever been in a physical altercation, they've never been arrested, they've never had to run from police, they've never had someone cover up their work. Like, all these things that are like really commonplace for a graffiti artist, for a graffiti writer, they don't know anything about. They're just kind of jumping on this trend, and that's kind of where I get offended, you know. And for me, I'm a graffiti artist, and for me, that led to painting murals.
Do you think this was always a problem, or just something more recent?
It's definitely a recent phenomenon. It's like in the last few years, I think that people, basically investors, they've realized that there's money to be made off one specific part of graffiti culture, which is like, so, you know, the levels of graffiti are like street level tagging, and then like eventually you're doing more and more abstract typography. And then eventually, when you're painting, like this one you're looking at right here, like it's a girl from Sacramento that passed through Memphis, named Mimi. So you can see like M-E-M-E, and she's in CBS Crew.
You recognize?
Yeah,
okay.
I know of her work.
Okay.
So that's graffiti. Like, I don't have any beef with that particular post, you know. But then like this one, so this is my work. This is a recent wall that I did.
That's your work.
It's my work, yeah. And then that was a mural. Like, I got paid to do that, and I did it with permission. So to me, that like it makes it not graffiti, you know.
But it's tagged as though it's graffiti,
right? And
because people don't know the difference.
Exactly. And like, you know, if you look at this mural, like it's very similar to the aesthetic that I've developed through graffiti art, but just the fact that like I had permission.
I wish I was seeing the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's over there, Cooper and Central.
Oh, so it's just right down here. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I was paid for that. So then at that point, like, to me, it kind of becomes this thing of like, well, that's really more of a mural, and I don't believe in this like second middle ground of like trying to lump graffiti and muraling together as this it's just a hip thing, you know. It's like just people have realized that they can make money off of it.
Yeah.
And they commodified it, you know, and called it street art, what they could make money off of. So
there comes a point though when I feel like there's too much of probably this refined art, that it kind of feels like an amusement park. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, and it's probably because it's, like you said, it is becoming a little, too many people are doing it, and it's the paid work. And I love seeing it, but there's a difference of going to a city and seeing it. Like I will say, I did, when the big mural happened over close by that Redbird Stadium, that giant, I love that. I think that's gorgeous. But if you see, there's a point when if you see too many, I think.
Too many murals?
Yeah, and not even, if they're too close together, I think it feels like it's forced, maybe.
Sure.
Because they're commissioned artists, I think.
Right.
And so it kind of loses a little bit. Now, some of them are great. Like, I love seeing the culture that people, these are truly art. I'm not trying to knock down them not being artists, but I do feel like if there are too many paid ones doing this, then it does it becomes a little showy, maybe.
Sure. I think maybe part of what you're saying, I think maybe part of it is kind of native to Memphis, like that problem is native to Memphis, because in Memphis, like anytime anyone commissions a mural, and like this is what I'm doing as my primary means of income, like anytime someone commissions for me for a mural, there's always conditions. They're thinking about the demographic they're trying to market it to. They're thinking about what imagery they want.
Okay.
So it's never like just
a true expression.
It's always, you're always working with some kind of guidelines. And that's why I think some of the times it feels very forced when you see some of these murals, because there's just a really fine line between like, okay, it's art, and now like the client dictated way too much and was way too prescriptive, and now it's just corny, like it's not, there's no authenticity in it, there's no real expression in it. It's just like these people wanted something that's gonna bring attention to their business,
Okay.
Yeah. But I think maybe part of that is unique to Memphis, because when I go to other cities, I see the placement of murals is much better. They're really using it as like a way to activate a space, and they're giving like the artists a lot more creative freedom to like add something with value to the community, and not just like,
it feels more like a revival, like they're reviving a place.
Absolutely. It's not like a lot of the art, a lot of the murals I see around Memphis is just like what I call plop art. Like they realized we had a big wall, and they're like, oh, we could put something on there. Like what's the most dumbed down, like generic thing that like no one will get offended by, and then it just becomes, something else.
Yeah.
And then that like totally strips it of any kind of artistic integrity, which is like really the complete opposite of what a mural should be about like the accessibility, like giving a place identity, making people like stop and like just think, for a minute. On the record, man, like that's the issue with mural making in Memphis right now. Making murals is that the clients who have the money, who have the ability to commission murals and buy murals, they're not trusting the artist. And they're being too prescriptive, and they're cheesing it up, man. Like, they're telling us, like, if it's not Grizzlies, barbecue, blues, like, it's just, like, the same thing. And it's like, how redundant are we going to be as a city? Like, we can keep repeating the same things that we, like, you pigeonhole yourself when you want to paint a grizzly bear on the wall, because, like, you can take one look at it and go, oh, the Grizzlies, I like the Grizzlies, that's great. And a lot of the work that I've been commissioned for, like, I feel the same way, but I'm just trying to make a living, Like, I'm an artist, I want to keep making art, and I'm just trying to make a living, so I've said yes to some of these jobs, but, like, we're never going to have any new culture unless we start making it. The thing is, like, when I just paint something weird, when I paint something that's, like, you can't immediately understand what it means, like, those are the kinds of works that are getting reblogged by Juxtapose. Like, those are the kinds of works that are going viral and bringing attention to Memphis, Tennessee, like, in a new way. Like, look at this crazy, new, wild stuff that's coming out of Memphis.
Yeah.
And then it's adding culture to our city, whereas, like, if I just paint another Grizzlies mural, no one, like, go Grizz, but, like, no one else cares, man. No one else cares, and that's not adding anything to our city,
Yeah. Or breast cancer awareness over here.
Right, or bricks, and that was a guy named Maxwell Harmon.
You know all of them.
Yeah, and he's such a good kid, man. Like, and he took that mural and did it. I think he worked basically for free, just because he's hungry, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and even if you would have given him a chance, like if they would have given him a chance and said, like, here's some money for the materials, like, go have a ball, man.
Because it's well done. It's just the concept of it is what kills me.
It's just so generic and lame.
They were okay to paint over something that was already
a landmark.
Historical. Yeah.
Right. And the thing about so the wall before then was Alex Warble. Do you know about him?
I know that name.
So it was Alex Warble, and like everybody, it was like a big, you know, the scene with like people waiting in line.
Yeah.
And everybody in that line were like friends of his in the Midtown scene that he knew, that were like living in Memphis at the time. So it was like really this true, honest reflection of like the people and the culture of Memphis. And yeah, just to cover it up is, you know, it's like, it's tragic, you know, and like at the same time, like I understand Max's point of view where like he's just trying to get his name out there. He's trying to get some commissions under his belt and build a portfolio. And like the mural's a little faded, but like what they should have done was whatever money they spent on the materials for Max's mural, they should have hired Alex Warble again and given him that money and have him like retouch up the mural.
Is he still
you know,
in Memphis?
He is. Yeah, Alex Warble still is. He does great work too.
I think that's really what bothered me. It's like, why would they paint over that?
It was so
one?
good, man. It was so fun, man.
Yeah.
It was like they were all like partying and like so much about what we're about in Memphis, you know. And yeah, it was just sad to see that one go. Yeah, man. Like if you're a business owner, just trust the artists, man. Like for once, man. Like trust the artists. They do this for a living. Like they're more hip to this than you are. Like just trust them. And even if it's weird, you'll get a better response than like if you just paint a Grizzlies logo, you know, like just have a little face and a Memphis Bridge. I'm done, man. Like any commission that comes my way, Elvis, the Memphis Bridge, the Tigers, unless it's the Grizzlies themselves commissioning me because they got that NBA money, like I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing any more Elvis mural. I'm not doing like every mural I get. It's like people are saying they're asking me to somehow tie it back to Memphis. Like, can you put the bridge in there? Can you put blues or rock and roll or a guitar? And I'm just not doing it anymore.
We're not living in that time.
We're not living in that time. That's right, man. And like,
I can say that even though this is Memphis Type History and we talk about history, I'm aware that this is 2017.
Yeah, and you're spinning it, you know.
And I love it as it is. I do love the history, but I also live in today.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I also want to publicly say too how much I loved you guys' book, man. And I gotta say, like when I was in college, my friend and I had a similar idea, and we're like, we should like make a coffee table book of like all the different crazy signs, and you guys beat us to it.
I know,
so kudos. No.
Okay.
Because listen,
we're
man,
not even
like,
from Memphis.
No,
I'm so
it's okay.
Because you would have done an extraordinary job.
No, like I can't touch what you guys did, like the depth and the amount of history and the illustrations, the paintings, they're all like so great. I'm just glad somebody did it, and I'm just saying this now as like a genuine compliment of like how I was mad at myself for not doing it.
Yeah.
But I was like so stoked that you guys did it, man. Like as an artist in Memphis, like that gives me kind of a kick in the ass to be like, okay, like they're killing it, they're doing cool stuff, like they're making it happen, and that like spurs me on. You know, I told my wife, I was like, I mean, obviously I need a copy of it, and she got me a copy. Like, so just kudos, man. Like you guys killed it with that one, and I see you're continuing.
Instant heart melt. That
for sure, man. For sure. Like I'm a
have
fan.
That attitude about that.
I'm a fan first, for sure. Like
it did because you sent me a message about that, and I verbally out loud said, "Aw." Like, it was like one that was a plan of yours, but then also that you said you were okay with it because you found out it was us, and I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And
and also because I was being lazy, like so, you know, like there's no excuse for laziness. Like if you have an idea, like get on top of it and do it, man. Like
it's hard I will say it's hard for artists too, though, and I will say props to Caitlin for that because she has that personality and a much stronger motivation to get it done than I do. But once I am, and she's the one that gave me the deadline, once I have a deadline then yes, I was doing a ton of research, knocking
For
out
sure.
paintings and stuff. But I needed to have that person that said, we're doing this, and this is the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right.
So maybe that's like what we need in the city as well, is like more people to just take the initiative and say, like, this is what we're doing. I'm doing it with these people, and it's going to be badass. And like, I'm just going to trust that it's going to be great. Like, I wish there were more people like that. Like,
working together is the way to do it.
It is, man. It really is. I had a friend the other day, like, asked me, like, he was like, he's always been a great friend. His name is Joram Mondi. He goes by Averill Mondi, and he's a photographer.
Sounds
and
awesome.
Yeah, maybe it's a great name. Like a year ago or so, he was talking to me and stuff like, man, I really want to get involved in your projects. Like, what can I do to help you? And my honest answer was like, man, like, the best thing you can do for me as my friend is just go kill it, man. Like, start a project and make a plan and see it through. Like, because that's what I need as an artist, or else I get stagnant. Like, if I'm like looking around the city and just no one's following through and no one is making art and no one is just being like, okay, you know what, like, I'm doing this, and like that's that, you know.
Yeah.
Like, until people are doing it by any means necessary, then like I'm not inspired. But like when I see my friends and people around me who are like coming up with great ideas and just doing them really well and executing and following through, that makes me be like, okay, what am I doing? Like, it's time for me to add something to the cultural landscape, you know. And but that's very much like, just again, man, like I can't say enough about what you guys did with the book. And it really is like just it's like a little blip in the cultural timeline to me. Like, I think it's it's really great, man. So I just really admire what you guys did, for sure.
Well, we really admire what you did, at least on my behalf. I'm sure I'm speaking on Caitlin's behalf as well. Like, you...
Caitlin's out of town, like, nah, I hate that guy still.
Caitlin's like, I left Memphis because I hated it.
Right.
No.
Right.
I came across something called soul food.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting. For the people listening, I'm not just talking about, like, Alcinias or whatever. I'm talking about, is this a group of painters?
So Soul Food it's an event, like similar to how I was talking about the events, like conventions, or what we said, like we're securing wall space, inviting people to come paint. It started, we did our first one in the summer of 2005, and we've done 5 of them since then. And it was something that I started back then, and just to get all my friends together and paint all at the same time. And there's something really cool about coming together like as a group and all painting the same wall at the same time.
And there was a gap when it wasn't happening, but it is happening now?
There was a gap. I was in school. I mean, like in 2005, 2006, we did it 2 years in a row, and then like it just became too much for me, and I'm not very good at multitasking. But then we had some, in the following years, and the last 2 I collaborated with a local nonprofit, but we're kind of going different directions this time, so I'm definitely planning on doing another one.
Okay.
I just don't know exactly when or where.
I feel like I've missed out. So when is this next one? Is it annual? It is annual?
I mean, like, ideally, it's annual-ish, yeah. Okay. So, like, maybe we skip a year or so.
It doesn't always have to be a certain season. You guys just decide, we got our crew together, let's make this happen.
Yeah. Last year, we did the last 2 years, actually, we did the Chelsea flood walls, which is at Chelsea and Evergreen. Chelsea is like North Memphis. Like, it's like north of Midtown.
Past Jackson?
Past Jackson, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did those walls, and last year we actually had like 130 artists out to paint all on the same day.
130?
So, yeah, quite a few. And, they were coming from all over the country. Like, they came as far as from, like, L.A., New Jersey, New York City. Like, there was, a really great turnout. Yeah.
How long is that?
How long is what now?
This event, is it just come out for a day?
It's usually a 3-day event, and on the first day, people kind of get there and get their spots prepared and see, look at their spot and kind of brainstorm and sketch. And then usually the second day is the main day of painting. Okay. And people will get there early and paint all day. Okay. And then they'll come and kind of finish up on that Sunday.
If I go there now, is it still painted?
It is still painted, yeah. I'm
going to do that. Okay, I'm doing this without Caitlin, so I may mess this up. But if you go to our show notes, MemphisTypeHistory.com/graffiti, you will see a picture of this wall of paintings that I anticipate I'm excited to see. So, yes, do that. Okay.
It's covered, yeah. It's a great wall.
Okay. Chelsea and Evergreen.
And North Evergreen, yeah.
Evergreen. Other stuff. But I feel like I got a good grasp on graffiti now.
Okay.
So, if, I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't know. It's not always with the spray can, or is it? It is.
I mean, generally, yeah, like we use spray paint just because it's the quickest. Like it's using like paint brushes and stuff. It takes forever,
No way.
Yeah, but when you kind of have a grasp on graffiti and the order of operations, like you can use spray paint. Like no, it's incredible, man.
No, I can't
it's the
even
best
spray
medium.
a chair.
Well, you've never had anybody show you anything.
Is there a technique to?
There's a lot of technique. There's a lot
how to
of
get
technique.
the paint out of the spray can correctly.
Absolutely, because if you think about it, you're using basically a cone of air. Like the air is going out.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like there's definitely like mechanics and things and techniques that you need to know, more so than any other medium I think I've ever tried. Like everything else that I've done usually gets pretty self-explanatory, but like there's definitely some tricks in graffiti that like if you don't have someone show you, it's really difficult to kind of know what you're doing. But I'm actually starting this company with my friend. It's going to be like an online graffiti and mural web series of web courses.
Okay.
So like if you're interested in like learning about how to use a spray can or anything like that, you can
there will be courses essentially.
There'll be a course, yeah.
Hey, okay.
Because I have so many people like ask me to teach them, and I just don't have time. I don't have time to teach everyone.
These are all people that are putting your names on people's property?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
We'll include that in our show notes as well.
Okay.
MemphisTypeHistory.com/graffiti. And well, thank you. I feel much more informed.
Okay.
I'm gonna quit my job tomorrow and try to get in your crew.
All right, like a year from now, I'll see where you're at and see if you're.
See if you can figure out my name.
Okay. Right on.
So,
thank you for having me so much. I enjoyed myself for sure.
Thank you for listening. Thank you, Brandon Marshall, for coming on the show tonight, or day if you're listening in day. And although you should be listening at night on your porch, as we mentioned earlier. This is Memphis Type History, the podcast.
We like your type.
You've been listening to Memphis Type History, the podcast. It would mean so much to us if you head over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode.
Want to be part of Memphis Type History and get behind-the-scenes content, merch, and more? Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Memphis Type History. That's Patreon, spelled patreon.com/Memphis Type History.
Find more Memphis Type History on our blog at memphistypehistory.com, on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest as Memphis Type History, and on Twitter at Memphis Type.